Thank you very much for that. This is my maiden visit to the Sydney Mining Club, and it's actually a great opportunity for me anyway to tell the base story in a slightly different way to the way I end up telling it most of the time, which is trying to explain it as an investment proposition and exploring a bit more of the journey we've been on as base. I'll start off with a bit of a snapshot of who we are. We're based in Western Australia, but we're all about the Kwale project in Kenya. We're listed both in Australia and on AIM. Very institutionally dominated register. Got a large representation here of our two largest shareholders. Market cap's around 230 million at the moment, which interestingly over the last year we've gone from the 85th largest Australian mining company to the 42nd largest Australian mining company without changing our market cap. As I said, it's all about the Kwale project. We're a long way into the building of this project now. We can see the finish line. We've spent some 260 million so far. We're funded for the rest of it. We're looking at a pretty healthy NPV for this project from here, including debt repayments of around $400 million. We've got quite a large debt facility that we put in place as part of the funding package for this project, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. It's been a rather busy 3 years. Actually 3.5 years ago, Base Resources was a $4 million market cap company with 2 employees in a borrowed office. We got our hands on the Kwale project in February of 2010. It's a project that had some $60 million spent on it over 15 years by a Canadian company, Tierman, who unfortunately had never quite got the stars to line up. We took a view that we could see some upside in the mineral sand sector and thought it was a project that we could progress through a range of funding landings and into being. So we did the deal in February. We had an extended due diligence period. I had to get the Kenyan government believing that a small $4 million company in Australia was capable of developing their flagship mining project, which was no small feat. Completed the acquisition in end of July of 2010. We then went about completely redoing basically a feasibility study that had been done for the project previously. Changed the concept to quite a degree, and it's what we called our enhanced definitive feasibility study. On the back of that, we got a credit approval for what is now a $190 million project financing facility. Went and raised $163 million in equity to fund the development of the project, and formally started development of this project in October of 2011. We started physical construction in January 2012, which feels like forever ago, but it's not really. We then got to the end of, it was around September last year, having completed detailed design, having had experience with construction across all of the 6 contract packages. We recognised we were going to need to increase our budget from 263 up to 298 million. Raised another 40 million to complete our funding package. And then our then minister, rather unfortunately, decided to introduce a rule requiring all mining licences to be owned 35% by local entities in Kenya. And our share price fell off a cliff in 2 days. We were fairly clearly of the view that A, practically that was impossible, and B, legally it couldn't be applied to us. Fortunately, our lenders took the same view, and we progressed to our first drawdown. I also managed to convince the government that something needed to be done to make a statement to the outside world that this also, their view was it couldn't be applied to us. So I got the Attorney General to write an opinion or to issue an opinion that it couldn't be applied to an existing mining licence. And we saw some recovery in our share price. We then went through Kenyan elections in March of this year, so we've had all the fun things to deal with over the last period of time. We now have an entirely new government. Fortunately, this new government sees the potential of the mining industry quite clearly. They've created a Ministry of Mines for the very first time. But the other complexity it's introduced is a second tier of government. We now have the equivalent of the state government tier in Australia, county governments, and so there's obviously some complexity around the way that gets implemented, and I'll come back to that. And where we are today, we're 95% complete on the project. As we say internally, and it doesn't matter if it's 99.9% complete, it's still not complete. So we sort of don't talk about completion percentages anymore. It's all about milestones. So it's been a lot going on, and we've come a very long way. I just wanted to show this animation, which hopefully is the very last time I have to show an animation to illustrate this project, and I'll be able to show you a movie. Just highlighting the project so you've got a visual image of what it looks like. We're down in the bottom corner of Kenya, down near the border of Tanzania. We're about 50 kilometres south of Mombasa, and as far away from Somalia as you can get in Kenya, which is kind of significant. We have 3 dunes, 10 kilometres inland from the coast. When we talk about the Kwale project, we're only talking about the central and south dunes. The north's never been included before. Quite low grade. At the central and south, we've got 146 million tonnes of sand. It's enough for a 13-year mine life. We're actually blessed with an ore body that has the highest grade material on the top of the central dune where we start, and the grade progressively declines over time. So it's not a chocolates tomorrow kind of deposit. We've completed the relocation of some 500 households from the mining lease, the flood zone of the dam and the tailings area. That's all complete. I'll come back to talk about community engagement a little later on. The dunes themselves sit up above the surrounding area. They're not like the flat-lying dunes that a lot of projects are based around. And as a consequence of that, dredge mining is not suitable. We'll be dozer trap mining. We've got a thin layer of topsoil to remove, about 20 centimetres, and then we basically have a naturally occurring stockpile that we work our way through. We've dug a number of pits to the bottom of it, so we've got a pretty good idea of what it all looks like from top to bottom. Very simple mining method, pair of big D11 dozers, the 2 biggest in the world, pushing up to a buried hopper, which moves around in 200 by 200 metre blocks, largely enables us to follow the grade profile. We had water at that point, a very large amount of water, hence I'm rather happy we have the Mukuramudzi Dam. Pump it up to the processing plant. First stage is to remove the slimes fraction. This is a relatively high slimes deposit at 25%. We've had 2 pilot plant operations run on this project over the last number of years. The second one of those was specifically aimed at understanding the behaviour of the slimes fraction. So we've got a good understanding of it. It liberates reasonably easily. We have no dredge, and we have a large supply of water. So most of the typical issues you run into with slimes are somewhat mitigated. All conventional mineral sands processing technology here. We haven't had to develop anything proprietary to process it. Conventional concentration, magnetic separation for the ilmenite, electrostatic separation for the rutile, and then a rather complex process of wet tables, Kelsey jigs and multiple circuits to extract our zircon. Always the hardest part of a mineral sands project, for those who are familiar with it. We're set up to export our product in a few different ways. All of our ilmenite goes out bulk. Most of our rutile goes out bulk, but some will go in containers, and our zircon can either go in bags or containers. Being only 50 kilometres from the port, we don't have a particularly long haul distance, and everything goes out in conventional trucks, so there's no B-doubles or anything like that. We've built an 8-kilometre road that connects us with the existing transcontinental highway. That highway is the main road that connects Mombasa with northern Tanzania. We'll be adding about 7% to the traffic on that road with our trucks. We're moving about 450,000 tonnes a year up that road. As I'll show you in a minute, our road is complete, and it's rather funny when you see the junction of our road to the highway. Our road's actually considerably better than the main highway. 16 kilometre, 132 kV power line connecting us to the Kenyan grid. That's up and running, and it's been providing construction power for a few months now. We seem to have frozen. Anyway, the main highway takes us straight up to the port of Mombasa. We've got a rather nice resort area just down the road between us and Mombasa called Diani Beach. It's about 14 kilometres of pure white sand, hotels, resorts, golf courses, hospitals. It's not exactly a hardship posting. So when you see the management team we've been able to put together, you'll kind of understand why. And also why I've been there 60 times in the last 3.5 years. Don't feel sorry for me. The road takes us directly up to the Mombasa port. We're actually on the south side of the port. Mombasa port is the second largest port in Africa, 1,700 ships a year, huge first world style port. It's actually on the island of Mombasa. We're on the south side of the channel, so we're in the port environment but quite separate from it. So we don't get caught up in the congestion. We also don't you have to deal with any of the the issues of getting across the ferry the ferry terminal. So good situation. We have our own storage shed, our own wharf and our own jetty, which I'll show you some photos of what it looks like completed. The approach we took to implementing this project was not to put all our eggs in one basket with an single EPCM contractor, which is I guess a little unusual for a very small company to go down that path, but certainly my experience has been that you get much better visibility on issues if you have a large owners team that is directly engaged within the EPCM contractors. So the approach we took was to get best of breed EPCM contractors in for each of what are quite discrete contract packages. We built a large team that was directly engaged and oversaw each of those and integrated them. And we also integrated our operational management team. The senior guys have been on board with us for over 2 years now, and they've been part of the design team that's signed off on the design that they're going to be held to account for operating. So no excuses. Little pictorial history. That's when we started our earthworks for the processing plant many moons ago. That's standing on the central dune looking back over the processing plant site towards the ocean. Started coming up out of the ground on the processing plant site around the late January. It gives you some idea of the scale of everything in this plant. We're mining and processing 8 million tonnes of sand a year, initially moving up to 12.5. There are our two thickeners, 32 metres in diameter. One of the interesting things with this project is every single piece of it has had to come across the ferry from Mombasa across to the south coast. It's been quite a logistical challenge getting that done, but it's worked well. That's about 5 weeks old now, and the concentrator in the middle, it's all been cladded now. The spirals. And our very proud newly minted operational workforce. We've got about 490 employees at base at the moment in Kenya. 71% of them are from our local community, the Kwale County, and 91% of them are Kenyan. So we've been very successful in getting a high degree of local participation in the project, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Early days of the port, getting access down to the water. Storage shed going up with the jetty. That looks like it's photoshopped on, but I promise you it's there. 65,000 tonne storage shed with the wharf and jetty coming together. That's what it looks like today. It's got a 1,000 tonne per hour ship loader up on the end of the wharf. The conveyor system is up. The electrical's going in now and conveyor belting. That should be finished end of October, early November. Power line, it's all completed. We energised that in May. It's the substation at the mine site. So the footprint for the Mukurumudzi Dam. This is one of the areas where we had a capital cost increase because the dam ended up being classified as a Class A dam, meaning it had to be able to withstand a 1 in 1,000 year flood and consequently had to be considerably bigger with an enormous spillway, as you'll see in a minute. There's the OG for the spillway. It's designed for 1,000 cubic metres a second. The reality is if we had a 1 in 1,000 year flood, the last thing the people downstream need to worry about is the integrity of our dam. That's the river diversion channel as the wall came up. That little puddle there was the puddle we were staring at for a rather disconcertingly long time as the wet season was a bit late this year. But then after we closed it, 4 days later it looked like that. It was empty 4 days before that shot. We had 6 million cubic metres of water come down the river in 4 days. That's what the dam wall looks like now on the downstream side. Tailing storage facility. is really all about storing the slimes fraction. We build a couple of embankments to seal off the low points in the valley. The plant site is up in the top left-hand corner there, and we use basically that field area to deposit the slimes. Water percolates down to a series of penstocks at the foot of those walls, and we collect that, and then we build the walls up around it with waste sand. Our access road was a completely virgin road. We weren't sort of upgrading an existing road, so we had to acquire all the land and relocate a number of households for it. It's through a bit of a hilly area. It also has a number of swamps and the like, so it's quite elevated above the surrounding area. You can see Kenyan productivity on roads in action there. There's only one guy supervising rather than the other way around. And that's what it looks like today, driving down our mine access road. We've got a camp which is currently home to 700 people, and a soccer pitch which is home to the local soccer league. We have matches there now every 2 weeks, round robins between the local community and a couple of employee and contractor teams, which is quite good fun. We've got a women's team too. They were actually the first ones to play on it. Kitchens, we serve several thousand meals a day. At the moment, about 75% of all the food that goes through that kitchen is procured from the local community. We've established a couple of trading posts where all the local farmers bring their produce. Our guys go down and buy it, and whatever they're able to source really sets the menu for the day. And as we decommission the scale of our camp, we're starting to work with the local hotels to get them to buy their produce locally rather than getting it from upcountry. Number of owners projects, all of the mobile fleet were procured ourselves. It's all on site, it's all up and running. The dozer trap mining unit has been assembled and is ready to commission. We're in the final stages of putting together our bore field, which is just a supplementary water supply. The Mukurumudzi Dam at full height now will hold 8 million cubic metres, which is more than a year's supply, and we have 2 wet seasons, so water's not an issue for us. One of the biggest challenges with a project like this, and something that made me decidedly nervous when we first set out on this, particularly given that we had obligations to maximise Kenyan participation, was the ability to build this safely. We're now coming towards the tail end of the project. We've actually now, I got the stats yesterday, we're now at 6 million man hours since our one and only lost time injury on a project with 2,100 people on it, half of which have never had a job on an industrial site before. And most of them have never worn a pair of boots before. And the funny thing now is seeing people riding their push bikes around with boots and hard hats. It's been fantastic. The thing that, quite apart from that performance in and of itself, the thing that really encourages me is what it shows about our ability to get a Kenyan workforce working the way we want them to work. As everyone here in the room will know, you never see an operation with a really good safety performance and rubbish operational performance. I mentioned earlier the operational management team who tell me they're here because they are really excited about the opportunity to build a mine, build a company and build an industry in Kenya. They're really here for the holiday. Fantastic team. We've worked very hard to bring together a team that blends mineral sands experience, commissioning experience, African experience, and obviously stellar performers in their own fields. We've got lots of guys for whom this is not their first commissioning. In fact, Denham Vickers, our General Manager, this is commissioning number 6. It's a fantastic team. On the marketing side, Stephen Hay joined us earlier in the year. He was the 2IC marketing at Aluka. Fantastic guy. We've got a great team. Offtake arrangements are in place to the extent they need to be over the next year. We'll look at topping up over the next year or so, but we've got some fantastic customers. DuPont in particular, they're our biggest offtake partner and taking 75% of our rutile. These customers were prepared to do what they needed to do to help us into production. They putting in place floor price mechanisms to underpin our financing and the like. They've worked with us by giving us concessional payment terms for the first couple of shipments so we can get our cash flow up and moving. Their preparedness to work with us has been fantastic. So that brings us to now. We're pedalling at 100 miles an hour to get our concentrator up and running towards the end of this month. Get some concentrate on the stockpile. Working towards commissioning the ilmenite and rutile circuits mid-October, and then the zircon circuit around the middle of November. that's the real focus, getting the rutile and ilmenite up. That's our access to cash quickly, so we're pedalling pretty hard. And then we're looking at our first bulk shipment leaving in the first week of December, and eagerly awaiting, waving goodbye to that. Almost as much as I'm looking forward to seeing the first cheque come back the other way. Kind of over seeing $1 million a day go out. So that's a bit of background to us and where we've got to. Just thought I'd talk a bit about some of the context for this project and some of the significance of it, and also what we've learnt, having been pretty heavily engaged in a project in a country that's never had a project like this before. This project has a very large impact on the Kenyan economy directly. I think we're the second largest foreign direct investment in Kenya's history. Certainly a private project. Will more than triple mineral sector export earnings. When you tell a Kenyan that the mineral sector is about to replace coffee in fourth place on the export table, even though they don't understand anything about mining, you get their attention. But the biggest impact this project has is as a catalyst for the mining industry. And the Kenyans see that. They've worked very hard with us over the last 3.5 years to drive this project. They've stuck to the letter to our investment agreement that we have with the government, which provides various fiscal stability and access to infrastructure and various other things. They understand this project has to be successful if they're going to have the mining industry they want. We've been officially anointed as their flagship mining project within their Vision 2030 framework. They understand their role and are going about it in a sensible way. They're modernising the mining administration. We've now got a mining ministry. They're working on a new mining act. They're establishing an appropriate fiscal regime, working on that. And they're clearly understanding the need to maximise Kenyan participation as early as possible in the mining industry and getting the settings right. Kenya's in an almost unique position as a country that's coming to mining really late. It's much more economically sophisticated than most countries that are starting out on the path of mining. So they've got a really good opportunity, if they get this right, to avoid some of the challenges and issues that come with the establishment of a mining industry. However, it doesn't always work exactly the way you want it to. One thing I've learned in Kenya is there's a very big difference between headline risk and what gets said publicly and what happens in the media, and the underlying real risk in Kenya. Kenya ultimately acts in a completely economically rational way, but you do have some left-of-field issues, like the announcement of the 35% local equity rule. Simply impractical, and as I was told by many other government players, will never happen. We've recently had an announcement by our Cabinet Secretary that he plans to implement 10% royalties and 10% free carried interest. Now that's completely contrary to their stated objective of crowding investors in and not out. It's also completely contrary to the work that Treasury is doing with the IMF at the moment to establish a really well benchmarked fiscal regime that positions Kenya competitively. At the end of the day, Treasury will carry the day. We already understand the Minister's taking a bit of a step back from those early comments and suggesting that he was stimulating debate. But that's the sort of thing we deal with. Just as a point of interest, we have a 2.5% royalty for the first 5 years under our investment agreement, so it wasn't something that was an immediate issue for us. As I said, local equity participation, no longer an issue. The Mining Act is coming forward slowly. It's somewhat flawed at the moment, but the parliamentary committee that's considering all of this is coming to Australia to spend some time with the Department of Mines in WA to learn. You may have seen that Kenya recently cancelled a whole lot of mining licences, a bit of a preemptive strike against a few licences they suspect were issued inappropriately over the first 5 months of this year. I fully support the intent, but cancelling them and then reviewing them doesn't make a great deal of sense. Surely you would review it and cancel the ones that were a problem. As I mentioned earlier, new county governments, while the Constitution is very clear about who's got responsibility for what, you can imagine there's a bit of elbowing and jostling at the moment to work out who's really got what, particularly when it comes down to division of revenue. And while Kenya is certainly on the right path and making all the right noises, integrity is still an issue. Our Cabinet Secretary at the moment has been in the job for 5 months, and is already being investigated for corruption. Government engagement. We've learnt many lessons over the last 3.5 years. We did go about this in a reasonably planned way, so we were ahead of the curve to an extent, but we've learnt a lot. One of the things I really learned early was for something like this, you need to have a government with a collateral benefit in your project being successful. For us, it was the fact that they knew this project needed to be successful if they were going to have a mining industry. That collateral benefit enables you to get past many issues and plough your way through the bureaucracy. If you're just project number 72 in a country, you will get lost in bureaucracy. Corruption demands a strategy. The way we've gone about it, I can say that we, with one minor exception, which was batted away very quickly, we have had no experience of an approach, a corrupt approach, from anybody. And the way we've gone about it is first time I meet any minister or any government person, I'm very clear up front about the culture of our business. That absolute integrity is one of the pillars that our business is built on. We have a zero tolerance policy for corruption, and if we can't build this project straight, we won't build it at all. And be absolutely ruthless in the application of that in every aspect of your business. Once you get one chink in that armour, you're gone. The other thing is broad-based engagement across the government. Ministers will tend to want to narrow you down to talking just to them, so they're your entry point. That then leaves you seriously exposed to their decision-making and the way they want to conduct business. We've taken a very broad approach. We talk to a number of ministries constantly. We also, when we're talking to people in say, you're dealing with the local water management authority, for example, we also have relationships with the guys at the very top of the water management authority. So we had a couple of issues early on with licensing. I was able to pick up the phone and call the CEO of the Water Resources Management Authority, and he was able to go straight to the people down and tell them, don't be doing that. And it doesn't take very long before people realise you have that ability, and you then find that things start flowing through without the usual facilitation. The other thing is your lenders are your friend. Our lenders were rather surprised when I didn't push and buck on our common terms agreement when they made it an event of default if we make any corrupt payment. They couldn't quite understand why I would not argue the case, because apparently most people do. It's fantastic to be able to hold up your common terms agreement and point to a minister and say, see, we can't. This would jeopardise the entire project. The other thing I've really learned is you just communicate with the governments in Africa. We circulate regular updates on the project, a few pages long, lots of photographs to a wide constituency in government, so everybody knows exactly where you're at and the momentum this project has. And we also include a list of all of the outstanding actions from government, and that's worked very well for us. If you're a CEO of a mining company and you're planning on taking on a project in Africa, expect to spend a very large part of your life on aeroplanes, in waiting rooms and in front of ministers. Most of the ministers in Kenya think I live there. Fortunately, it's a nice place, but at the end of the day, you have to be there constantly. You are the face of the company, and that's who they want to talk to, and they've got to feel like you're, in our case, a Kenyan company. Getting all the facts out this way and talking to a really wide group of people prevents alternate agendas from getting any air inside government, because there are so many people who know the reality, who know the truth. The other thing that we've learnt is the need to establish a very strong media presence. You've got to educate the media. If you can get them understanding the mining industry and understanding what you're doing, it leads to better journalism, and it also leads to them asking the right questions of government. So when ministers stand up and say we're going to impose 10% royalties, you get immediately the media getting on it and saying that makes no sense, and questioning where they're getting that sort of benchmarking from. It also, if you're a credible and accessible person for media in the country, as soon as you need it, you have a platform, and it provides a defence. We've found that you get more respect in Kenya when the government knows that you have the ability to prosecute your case through the media. We have a slightly different approach to community engagement than most companies. I hate the phrase CSR, as anyone who knows me will know. We've banned it as a phrase in our company. It's a language of obligation. It leads, in my mind, to the thought process of CSR, these programs as being what you need to do to be seen to be corporately, socially responsible while you get on with your core business. Our view is that this is absolutely core business. We attack it very much in a transactional... We attack it more in a transactional sense. We're very clear about what we need from our community. You know, from one end of the extreme, it's a safe working environment for our people. It's a happy, motivated, proud workforce coming out of the community. At the other end, it's a community that are references for us for where we want to go next. And if you're clear about that transaction and you give them what they need in order for you to get what you want, you've elevated it to, you know, a core part of your business, and that's our philosophy. Our focus has been on establishment of our position, you know, establishing the basic needs, addressing those, because the ultimate aim is to capitalise or to maximise the community's ability to benefit from our projects. We work through community liaison committees, so they're heavily involved in guiding what we do and how we do it and communicating two ways. And we actively involve a lot of NGOs, not-for-profits, and various co-sponsors like Asenco have been, you know, big supporters of our community programs, trying to provide a more integrated delivery mechanism for what is quite a diverse range of programs in our area. More lessons, you know, manage expectations, fairly self-evident, but I can tell you expectations start big and they just get bigger. So you've got to start in the right place. The other thing we learnt, it's not just about employing Kenyans, it's employing the right Kenyans. You know, our local community focuses more on the people we've employed from upcountry than from the expatriates. Government will tend to step back once you're active in a community, and you've got to try and fight that at all levels because you soon find you've created dependency. And we've elevated all of this to a general manager role. It's a very, very complex interaction between local government, community, security. It's a challenge. I've never put this slide up in public before. This is something we use internally, and we put this together in very early on, late 2010. And that may sound like a really ostentatious statement at the top, but what does that mean? The purpose of this was to guide everything we do, to keep us looking beyond what we're doing at the moment and where is it that we're really trying to go. What does being the preeminent African-focused mining company mean to us? It means we're the first thought of company when people are thinking about truly successful mineral development in Africa. That's where we're trying to get to. You know, governments and communities will be inviting us in. We get employees seeking us out. We're already seeing that effect now. We're seeing communities wanting to talk to us about project opportunities, and others will seek to emulate us. So I thought, seeing as I'm in amongst friends rather than odds and sods, I'd share that with you. First time ever. That's who we are. Thank you very much.